Hello. That sounded weird. Let me try again. Hello. Okay, that was exactly the same. Anyway, here is a very dafty, crafty crafting video, I guess, where I try to make a Princess Mononoke Diorama from scratch. Will it be Mononoke or just Mono? No. Let's find out, I guess. I don't think I've ever made a video like this before. Usually I'm either role-playing as Christian Bale or Gary Oldman, but this time I'm role-playing as myself, role-playing as a model maker, role-playing as a YouTuber, which is fun. It's kind of like, it's like an imposter syndrome roleplay, I guess, where you think you're pretending to do the thing that you're not really doing it, but because you're pretending to do it, you are actually doing it. So it's real, But anyway, because I'm a YouTuber, role-playing as a YouTuber, it means that I can finally do something like this with a little graphic and say, hey guys, please don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. Cool. But there won't be more content like this, as it's a one-off, so sorry, but I did have a lot of fun doing it. I mean, there was a lot of frustration, but it was mainly fun. I haven't made anything like this since I was a teenager in the 90s. Yeah. So it felt really cool to harken back to a time of creation and imagination. Not the 90s, they weren't great, but childhood. And I also want to say that this wouldn't have been possible, if indeed it was, without having watched way too much of the absolute stud that is Studson Studios, and Bill Making Stuff, who is British, and lives threateningly close to me, I think. See you soon, Bill Making Stuff. But honestly, check them both out. Their precise and exquisite humour is matched only by their video editing ability and, I guess, their aptitude for making art out of essentially nothing, which is the essence of imagination, I guess. So massive thanks to both of them for making it look easy and doable enough to the point where I thought that I could do it too. But could I? Should I? Would I? Maybe I. Let's find out. As for one night only, I become ASMR. So, I started this entire pun-fueled, misdirected misadventure by finding a base for the whole thing. As you can probably imagine, and I'm sure you do too, I have an awful lot of knightly armour lying around. Not that I wear knightly, but for knightly reasons. And so I need stands for all that armour. And it turns out the spare base of one of these stands makes a rather nice circular home for this potential diorama, and is a pleasing 15 centimeters in diameter. This helped me to decide, arbitrarily, that the whole thing should be 20 centimeters tall, and so I scaled everything to that. I then made a template for the base of the model to work from, so that I didn't fuck up this lovely rosewood finish. I took some card and, oh look, it divided its cells and made another one. Nature. Anyway, then I very roughly drew out the circle of the beveled base, and this is the only bit of the typical sort of craft video editing I could be bothered to do. But anyway, there it is. So, in Princess Mononoke Princess, there are trees in it. So it's got to be a rainforest scene, right? And so I thought I'd take my inspiration from the kind of rainforests they have up in Canada. But that means we need trees and stuff, right? Shall I make the trees? No. Well, no. So, how do you get wood? Would you liken to know? Alright, so to get wood, I ventured to the most verdant vestige in my vicinity and, like a hobbling feudal serf, collected bark, bracken, and twigs to bring back to my hovel. Here they are. Good wood. But wood, like nature, can be full of ticks, tricks, traps, and terrors. So, make sure you clean your wood thoroughly before use, which, to be honest, is good life advice in general. I soaked mine and then baked them at 80 degrees Celsius for 1 hour. But the first batch I cooked looked so tasty that I gobbled them up there and then. Having sated my sapling starvation, I made a new batch and they look great. So tasty. Ready to eat. Just one bite. No. But the bark is worth not the bite. Oh God. Because those big bits will become rocks, of course, and the twigs will become trees. In death, they realize their grand ambition, whereby they soared too close to the sky, only to fall to the ground below. Completely ignoring the foam board that I specifically got to act as a rigid working base to build on, I, for some reason, decided to start laying out the scene on the card, a very water-soluble and thin layer that might come back to haunt me. Or might it? Well, this build is full of a playful lack of planning and general understanding that will surprise, delight, and probably infuriate all of you, I'm sure. But anyway, I arranged the bark on the base to act as, well, the base, to build everything upon. I then unarranged everything and hot glued it to the card. I love hot glue. I hope glue do too. But how can you tell a glue gun is ready? Well, of course you just touch the glue and the end of the gun. If it hurts, you're ready for fun. So, if it hurts to touch the gun, then you know you're ready for fun. Just like how you check a real gun is loaded by looking down the barrel. I'm just kidding. But seriously, don't actually touch the glue gun, or glue if you can help it. Unless you have cutically challenged robot fingers like mine. After that, I then didn't even really bother measuring the sticks that would be trees and just started randomly gluing them down in an arrangement that I thought, yeah, that'll do. It was trial and error. Oh, look, I spied out with my little Ida that the thin, sinewy, silky strands from glue sticks become free cobwebs, right? Sure, why not? For the vines, I used twines that I singed the strands off for a sleeker, macaque-friendly ergonomic look. Sorry, Colobus monkeys. You need thumbs to grasp these bad boys. After that, there were a bunch of gaps that would have been just fine if I'd used the foam base that I'd bought specifically for this project, but not thinking about that at the time, I decided to fill it with a notoriously goopy, wet latex substance that came out significantly goopier and wetter than I thought it would. And it did not behave in a manner befitting the housing of our favourite wolfen rainforest latex predator. So I covered it in PVA and toilet paper. I call this part the butt as a result, and you better believe it comes back to haunt me, like most butt stuff does the next day. Haha. Anyway, trying to forget about the mess that was my butt, I precociously primed and sealed the scene in a healthy mix of black acrylic paint and Mod Podge. Mod Podge. What a name. Like a delightfully chubby moped driver. I had never done this before, and it was scary, but it was fun too. Really, I should have just sprayed it with paint, but I was always terrified of that weird warning picture where the fish who's like vacationing on the land dies because of pollution in the sky or something like that. Like, surely deciding to go on land killed it and not the environment destroying solvents, but whatever. In hindsight, I wish I had sprayed it because it took ages and I missed loads of bits. Furthermore, only post-mortem did I put it on a pedestal, which in this case was an ashtray I had lying around, and that would have made it significantly easier to paint, being able to spin it. Oh well, you live and you turn. After a little blow dry, I left that heap of tar to dry on the tray that collects things that make tar and moved on to the models. In this scene, they would be Moro, the big doggy goddy, Princess Mononoke, San, and those wibbly-wobbly, clicky-clacky, perpetually perplexed forest spirits. Now, I'm no biologist, but apart from really nice business cards, I think most living things need bones, I guess. Otherwise we'd all be jellyfish, just having a wibbly-wobbly great time. Fun fact, there's a Welsh word for jellyfish that is, in fact, wibbly-wobbly. Is that a fact? Maybe. Having, of course, lost the armature wire I bought for this specific task, I decided to use pipe cleaners from the apparently extensive collection of smoking paraphernalia I have. They were awful and didn't really work, but it helped me get the placement and flesh out the basic shape of Moro, who, yes, at this point looks like an anemic Doberman, but I had a plan. A very ill-fated, bizarre, and tiresome plan that would get me into a hairy situation foreshadowing. Moving on, I made all of those little forest pervs who would eventually become part of a fun, hey, how many little forest people can you see game. And then I made all the bits that I assume a human is composed of for San, but disassembled, as eventually she would be riding on the back of Moro, just like Mark Bolan on that white swan. Oh, by the way, to make all these little bits, I used Milliput, an epoxy resin which I frequently ran out of after making way too much and wasting loads. At this point of the build, actually, a little tip I learned after the fact is that if you've got some left over, you can put it in the freezer and that will slow down the curing process so you can use it again whenever you want, which is a really good tip that I wish I'd known. It's also super sticky, so maybe not the best medium to model, but I'd pick an even more not the best medium to model later, so get ready for that scary moment foreshadowing. Having made the basic model shapes, I set them aside to dry and decided, yeah, it was okay to paint all your base belonged to us. Really, I should have waited for it to dry more, but I had no idea what I was doing, and I'm very impatient. Of course, like most humans, I only see in ultraviolet, so I'm reliably informed that the colors I'm using for this diorama are raw umber, crimson red, yellow ochre, lemon yellow, meridian, and emerald green, as well as, of course, titanium white, and ebony black. To be honest, there are probably other colours I used too, but I don't remember, and it all becomes a bit chaotic and desperate after this part. So, I wetted the wood in woody washes and stoned the stones in stony tones. After that, I absolutely drenched the entire thing in a wash made of, I think, water and black acrylic. Maybe like 9 parts water and 1 part paint. This would, in theory, low-light the lows, so at the end I'd be able to highlight the highs with some dry brushing, if I ever got to that stage. And then, because, like everybody else, I can't say no to flocking, I took a particularly potent strain of green foliage and dabbed some around with PVA to fill any ominous gaps and awkward silences, before clumping on a lighter blend of green for the up-deck flora freshness. I also attempted a bit of dry brushing, but it didn't really work, so pretend you didn't see that bit. Okay, thank you. Oh, wait, hey. I must ask you a question. Are you feeling okay? Because I feel fine. Yep, shut the flock up, because it's flocking time, improper this time. I dabbed the flock out of this scene in places where I thought it made sense to add texture and green, before habitually making a vine line and hanging the canopy curtains between flirty branches. I finished this mess off with some highlight touches, and it was at this point that I was like, hey, this doesn't look awful. Maybe I can actually do this. But then came the next bit. It's Cat-a-day. Here's the finished moro. Just kidding. It's a toy cat who's very happy to see you. But it's actually Fur's day. Fur being the operative syllable. However, it was actually Saturday. But there's going to be fur. How many puns per minute is this? Anyway, let me explain. Some of you will know that I make most of my costumes and some props for my videos. For some characters, I need to quickly grow facial hair, but even at my grand age, my natural facial hair is dubious at best. So I make press-ons and prosthetics. Kinda grossly, I guess. I make all my fake beards and tashes from my own human head hair that I molt on a regular basis to allow for my winter coat to shine through. So it got me thinking, hey, Moro is a wolf god, right? Wolves are fluff monsters. So, what if I just sculpt her fur from actual real, but actually faux fur? I'd worked with fur a fair bit, like with the Blythe RP, and then Blythe's head being featured in that recent Druid vid, so I thought it was a good idea, right? For shame. It was not a good idea. So, I'm going to rush through this part of the build, which was mainly regret. I kind of awkwardly base coated and put together sand before moving on tomorrow, and well, let's find out tomorrow. Here's tomorrow. What followed was an okay first pass at making the furry fur, followed by some dress design using PVA glue and TP that made me want to put a Tim gun to my head, but then, from Doberman to Irish Wolfhound. At this point, I still thought it was going okay, so I kind of cackhandedly put San and Moro's back and then lathered the entire thing in hot glue and base coating. Why? I don't know. But it was not going well. What was I doing here? I mean, look at this. I used a soldering iron to try to iron out the creases, but the caustic fumes from the burning plastic, paint and hair were a heady mix. And it just got worse from hair. Basically, I desperately tried to salvage something from it. I had invested too much hair in this. I wanted it to look like I had spent hours upon hours carefully hand modeling each hair follicle, texture and fiber when in actual fact it had taken mere days to hot glue this whole mess. I base coated, recoated, remodeled, painted, whatever. The whole thing for ages until I said, okay, done, it's done, let's finish. Let's just, and here are the beauty shots. But no, it wasn't beautiful. I wasn't happy with it. It looked too much like a model, and at the same time, too much like a sort of photorealistic wolf somehow. It weren't Ghibli enough. It wasn't goodly enough. So I inhaled a week's worth of breath and corrosive fumes and decided to try again. This time, I would model it, because it was a model, right? So it made sense. Don't use hair. Don't make anything that isn't hair out of hair. Anyway, I started again by not starting again. I decided to use the sturdy and quite startling thing that I had already made and build upon it, and I think it went better. I recommenced by recoating the coat in a coat of more milliput. This made Morrow look sturdier and battle-ready, rather than Morrow after a very heavy weekend. San was looking a little unsanitary too, so I needed to do the same with her. I needed to break stuff, like the Limp Bizkit classic. Rollin'. So I rolled. Oh, and I broke stuff too. My, what big ears you have. For to heal a bone, you must first break it, and then set it at a funny angle so it heals all wonky. Trust me, I've pretended to be a doctor roughly once every 2 months for years. So, I broke Morrow's second tailbone to reset it, and it was at this point that I felt like the real monster in the Princess Mononoke, because the hair I had built the base on formed a kind of like weird viscera and some sort of flesh that felt fleshy. Was this my apotheosis? Had I become a rainforest god? No, I was merely rehashing a hash bash that was trashed, but I was feeling better about it. Morrow was coming together quite literally. I painted here and there and then tried to create texture with a variety of things, including a very friendly Shinigami who happened to be flying by. But in the end, none of that worked. And it turns out that the best texturing tool for fur ends were my fingernails that had grown long and dirty. I lightly applied some isopropyl alcohol to smooth out the edges, but I gotta be honest, I was quite nervous using it and got woozy, so I stopped. But anyway, it's all complementary texturing, right? Oh, and I also sort of cheated with Sans face by just printing out the pattern and kind of PVA gluing it on. But anyway, let's ignore that, because San was the worst bit. I didn't do very well. After a wash that was way too dark and a bit of off-camera touching up, I was done. And I was pretty happy with it. Happy enough to share it on here anyway. To me, what put me off was that it still looked like something that I had made. But, I guess that the moral of this video is, because all my videos have morals, that if something you make looks like you made it, then actually that's Mononoke. And I know I made that joke already, but it was a fun one, alright? Anyway, thank you. Thank you for watching the one and only ASMR episode. And thank you for being you. Bye-bye. Wait, that sounded weird. Let me try again. Bye-bye. That was exactly the same.